Shalom, my dear friends. Shalom. Today, the 28th day of the month of Iyar of the year 5777, corresponding to the 24th of May of the year 2017. And today is the most auspicious day today here in Israel, celebrated and throughout the world as Yom Yerushalayim, the day of Jerusalem, when the city of Jerusalem was reunited in the year 1967, just 50 years ago today, after having been occupied by the forces of the Kingdom of Jordan with absolutely no right or legal justification whatsoever since the end of the 1948 Israel War of Independence, and recaptured the old city and the Holy Temple Mount on this very day, the 28th of Iyar in the year 1967, just 2 days into the Six-Day War, which had broken out on the 5th of June, which that year fell on the 26th of Iyar. And perhaps the great victory and the recovery of Yerushalayim, the victory of the Israeli forces in reclaiming Yerushalayim. This was in the merit of Samuel the prophet, whose day of Zikaron, Memorial Day, said by tradition to be his day of ascent from this world, was on this very day today, the 28th of Iyar, and many people here in Jerusalem go to visit the gravesite of Shmuel Hanavi, Samuel the prophet, which is located on the hills to the north of Jerusalem. My friends, I know that some people have been having issues with getting the live video, which we're reporting is actually streaming. So with that, for the benefit of those who are tuned in and who are able to receive today's class, let me turn now to today's studies. Shalom, today, the 28th day of the month of Iyar of the year 5777, corresponding to the 24th of May of the year 2017. And we now today turn in our studies to the continuation of Sefer Iyov, the book of Job, in chapter 32 of the book of Job, which now begins a whole new level in the book of Job. As we see from the opening verse of chapter 32, the three companions who had come to comfort Job, and this apparently was a somewhat public address to Job with others present, the three companions who had so far spoken to Job, and they had spoken in order of seniority in terms of age. They had not persuaded Job. They had themselves left off trying to speak, and we've had in the last most amazing and beautiful and eloquent chapters the concluding summation of Job, from whom we will be hearing in the rest of the book only very few verses. And now the next section of the book, from chapter 32 until chapter 38, to the end of chapter 37, these chapters now are in the name of Elihu bar Barachel, whose identity we will discuss in just a moment. Elihu bar Barachel, who now takes the center stage and challenges and chastises both Job and Job's companions for having not satisfactorily answered the question. If Job indeed was completely righteous, as Job felt himself to be in his own eyes, if indeed this was true, that Job's testimony was true, and we've heard Job's most eloquent testimony about his righteousness, then certainly the companions have not successfully countered Job by saying, well, you must have sinned somewhere and that's why you are suffering. And Job all the time had been protesting that he had not been sinning, and that if so, the only other conclusion is that perhaps we are left to a blind fate which takes no account of people's righteousness or their lack of righteousness. And Job had protested in these last chapters that even if that were so, even if the affairs of this world are abandoned to a blind faith that does not discriminate between the righteous and the wicked, nevertheless, Job had maintained that the way of God, which is the way of the fear of God, leading to wisdom and understanding of God, is the only path to take in life. And that indeed is a preparation for this coming section of the book, the address of Elihu bar Barachel from chapters 32 to the end of chapter 37, and then from chapter 38 till almost the end of the book, the address to Job by God Almighty out of the whirlwind, some of the most remarkable flights of biblical literature. And indeed, as we go forward in this book, we are being challenged to rise to ever higher levels of wisdom and understanding. And we shall see that the very term wisdom will recur again and again in Elihu bar Brachel's addresses. We already had one reference early in the book to the wise that will tell us that the wicked have their downfall. But now Elihu bar Brachel is going to challenge Job and the companions and say that they have shown themselves not to be sufficiently wise. And we will have to be extremely astute with the help of our Meforshim, and particularly with the help of Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, in his commentary on Job, to open up the very subtle mysteries of the coming chapters. In some ways, the chapters in which God addresses Job after the out of the whirlwind with a series of many questions to Job, challenging Job to understand how mind-boggling is this universe. In some ways, there the literature is easier understood on the level of the pshat, the simple direct meaning, even though there are many mysteries contained in those later chapters. The 49 pathways of understanding are contained in allusion in those questions, as we will refer to later on. But here in the address of Elihu bar Brachel, we will need to be astute in following the subtleties of the Hebrew language to distinguish between what Elihu bar Brachel is telling Job and the companions as opposed to what had been discussed in the debate so far. Because we do see that Job does not answer the address of Elihu bar Brachel. The answer of Elihu bar Brachel leaves Job without words, and then immediately God addresses Job out of the whirlwind, as if Elihu's words are a preparation for God speaking to Job out of the whirlwind. Elihu is bringing us to higher levels, but these will require very great care in our interpreting these verses to understand where this is going. Before we actually go into the text, the Hebrew text in detail of this chapter 32, we will start to discuss now a little about what is the identity of Elihu bar Brachel. And we shall come to some very surprising conclusions. Chapter 32, that these three men ceased their answers to Job because he was righteous in his eyes. And then the wrath of Elihu, the son of Brachel, the Buzi from the family of Ram, his anger waxed against Job and over Job's deeming himself more righteous than God. Job had deemed himself righteous, but in saying that God is dealing with Job unjustly, that is impugning the glory of heaven. There could be, God forbid, any injustice in God. So it's one thing for Job to say that he's had a very hard deal, but to say that he's more just than God, that's going too far. Then he goes on to say, Elihu in verse 3, his anger burned against the three companions over finding no answer to Job besides saying that Job was evil. And then continues verse 4, Elihu awaited Job with his words. In other words, awaited all of the previous speeches of Job in the last chapters. He waited, and likewise for the friends, because they were all more old than him in days. So states verse 4. They were older than him in days. And when Elihu sees that there's no more answer on any of the lips of the three companions, that's when he gets angry, and that's when Elihu jumps in and says, even though I am young in days and you are elders, and therefore I'm crawling in terror of expressing my opinion, I say that days will, I thought that the days and age will speak, but no, I see there is no wisdom among you. So who is this young upstart who is now taking the center stage and telling all of these elders that even though they are older in age, he is wiser than them and he will come to teach them. So the identity of Elihu bar Rachel is referenced in our Talmud, in the Talmud Bavli, in the Sugya of Job, which is in Bava Basra on page 15, side B of the page. And there the Talmud says, and this is a most extraordinary statement of our Talmud, there were 7 prophets that prophesied to the nations of the world, and here they are Bil'am and Bil'am's father, Job, Eliphaz the Temani, and Bildad the Shuchi, and Tzofar the Naamati, who all of whom we've heard so far. And then the Talmud enumerates as the 7th Elihu bar Barachel Habuzi. And the Talmud states, you say that these were 7 prophets that prophesied to the nations. Is that to say that they were members of the nations? And the Talmud says, no, Elihu ben Barachel, the Talmud asks, was he not an Israelite? And the Talmud answers, it's written that he was from the family of Ram. And the family of Ram is none other, as we shall see presently, than the family of Abraham, of Ram, the father of the exalted father. And Elihu is from the family of Abraham. And the Talmud answers that he was an Israelite that primarily prophesied to the nations of the world. And then the Talmud says, but surely all of the prophets in the Tanakh were also prophesying to the nations of the world. But answers the Talmud, in those other prophets, their main prophecy was for Israel. But here, the essential prophecy of Elihu bar Barachel is directed at the nations of the world. That is to say that our chapters now possess true universality and relate to all of the peoples of the world. Well, now, that has not yet helped us with the identity of Elihu. And for that, we need to go to a fascinating section of the Jerusalem Talmud. This is in the tractate of the Jerusalem Talmud called Sotah, dealing with the unfaithful wife, the wife suspected of infidelity. And there we come across the following very fascinating discussion. Likewise, there in the Jerusalem Talmud, in the 5th chapter of the tractate of Sotah, in the Halacha Vov, the 6th halacha, towards the end of chapter 5, the Talmud is there also, Jerusalem Talmud now, giving a kind of parallel version of the sugya of Job that we've had in Bava Basra in the Babylonian Talmud. And among the different things which the Talmud has to say is Darash Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva darshaned out, he learned out from the verses where the verse here in our chapter of Job 32, it says, Vayichar af Elihu ben Barachel Habuzi mishpachas Ram. There burned the anger of Elihu, the son of Barachel, the Buzi from the family of Ram. Rabbi Akiva understood this verse to say that Elihu, that is Bil'am, the pagan prophet Bilam. We are in these chapters which Rabbi Akiva, without doubt, studied inside out. In his opinion, we are here hearing the prophecy of that same Bilam that was called to curse Israel, but could not but put forth the word of God blessing Israel. And Rabbi Akiva finds this in our text. Elihu is called the Ben Barachel. He is the son of Barachel. He is the son of the one that God blessed. Says Rabbi Akiva, Shebo lekalel es Yisrael uvechon. He came to curse Israel at the request of Balak, the king of Moab, but in the end he blessed them, like the verse in Deuteronomy, Moses recounts to the people, and the Lord your God did not want to hear Bilam. So why is he called Habuzi? What is the meaning of the epithet Habuzi? Says Rabbi Akiva, she'oyasa nevu'osoi bozui, because his prophecy was bozui, that is to say, considered to be lowly, disparaged in comparison to the prophecy of the pure prophets of Israel. They point out that the prophecy of the prophets of Israel come with the call of God to the prophet, Vayikra, whereas to Bilam it came Vayikar, the shortened root that means that it came to him by chance, as a kind of accident, as a kind of something cast from behind the shoulders from on high. His prophecy was bazui. It was considered to be very lowly, like it says in Book of Numbers, in the portion of Balak describing the prophecy of Bilam. He says, Nofel uglui einayim. He could only prophesy when he fell down, and then his eyes would be open to receive his prophecy. And Rabbi Akiva continues his darshaning on the name of Elihu from from Ram. So Rabbi Akiva connects this with Bilam saying, Min Aram yancheni Bolok. Balak, the king of Moab, brought me here from Aram. So his darshaning Aram is alluded here to in the name Ram. So all that is Rabbi Akiva's drasha on who is Elihu. Now, we recall that Bilam was considered to be the outstanding prophet of all the nations, and indeed in prophecy the equal of Moses on the level of prophecy. So even if Rabbi Akiva is holding that the following words are from Bilam, that is not to say that they can be pushed aside. And now comes the challenge to Rabbi Akiva from Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah totally dissents from the view of Rabbi Akiva and is going to go off in a quite extraordinary direction, as we shall hear presently. The Talmud says, in the words of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, "In hu kva kisa olav amokim." If that is indeed him, if indeed that was Bilam there, the Almighty has already covered over his shame and degradation, because he's expressed forth the prophecies of Bilam here in the mouth of Elihu bar Barachel. So if it was Bilam, then you should understand that Bilam apparently repented, according to the commentators here on the section in the Talmud Yerushalmi, that he must have repented, and that was why God put the Holy Spirit into the author of Job to put him in there as Elihu bar Barachel. And he goes on to say, and if it's not him, if that's not, if Elihu is not, as you, Rabbi Akiva, say, is Bilam, then Elihu is going to rise up in the future and argue with you. And so who, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, is Elihu? He says, Ze Yitzchok. This is Isaac, our father, the patriarch Isaac. And we shall presently discuss this very remarkable direction. He goes on himself, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, to darshan the verses. He says, Ze Yitzchok ben Barachel, when he's called the son of the one that God blessed, darshans Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, ben Shebircho O'el, the son of the one that God blessed him, like it says in Genesis, Vayivorchehu Hashem, God blessed Abraham. So why does it call him the Buzi? And Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says he's called Buzi because he despised all of the houses of idolatry, all of the temples of idolatry. He despised them when he was willing to be bound on the altar. Well, this is explained here in the commentary of the Korban Ha'eda on the Yerushalmi to mean that when Isaac was, very remarkable words here in this commentary, when Isaac was going to be bound on the altar, and this was at a time when there were pagan cults all around in the surrounding nations, among the Canaanites and the other nations, Isaac despised all of the idolatrous cults. And he wanted to prove to them, through his willingness to be offered on the altar, that they cannot pride themselves on serving their pagan gods more than us, because they too, those pagans, were burning their children to their idolatrous gods in fire. And continues this commentator in putting the words into the mouth of Isaac, in the service of our God there is no such thing that a person would offer his soul to the Creator. Ours is not a nation of jihadists who say, what the heck, let them get blown up in their suicide bomb. Our service of God, the service of our God, does not require that a person volunteer to be killed, except when it comes to sanctifying God's name publicly, or when it comes to fighting a necessary war. But there's no service of human sacrifice in Torah. But what Isaac was saying in being willing to be bound to the altar was that if God had commanded us to give up our lives for him, then he would not have stopped it. He would not have held back. And that is the greatness of Isaac. And why is he called from the family of Ram? He's called from the family of Ram because he is the son of Avram, the son of Abraham. So what can we take out from this discussion between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? We can take out, I believe, that firstly the prophecy of Elihu bar Rachel, whose prophecy is, as testified by the Babylonian Talmud, to the nations. The prophecy of Elihu is sublime and above and containing profound mysteries. And the second point is that the presence of our father Isaac in the discussion and the viewpoint of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah shows that we are being prepared for ascending to the level of Bina, understanding, through which we receive Chokhmah. And as we advance in the book of Job, we come to higher and higher levels of Bina. We are being prepared for this now by a figure whose sole root is with Isaac. And standing in counterpoint to Abraham, who epitomizes the attribute of kindness, here is Isaac, who is epitomizing the human attribute of severity and discipline. And this is what we are now hearing from Elihu bar Rachel, a higher level of gevurah, of the divine attribute of stern discipline, which is preparing us to rise up to the higher levels of Bina, understanding, which await us as we go forward in this book. Well, so far we have the passages in the Babylonian Talmud and in the Jerusalem Talmud, trying to ascertain the identity of Elihu bar Rachel. And now let us come to another aspect of this discussion, which is found in our Holy Zohar, in the section of the Zohar commentary on the portion of Terumah in the later part of Exodus, the portion after the giving of the Torah and after the portion of Mishpatim that deals with the secrets of the sanctuary that Moses built in the wilderness, and among the many diverse and ranging midrashim brought in our Holy Zohar on Teruma is one that is on page 166 of the traditional printing of the Zohar, and it's in the edition of the Matok Midvash. Begins the section on page Taf Pei, and this comes at our section from a different direction. There is a very beautiful section in this Zohar that speaks about the story of a young man who had come to Israel and was perceived from Babylon, who'd been seen doing something very, very remarkable in order to respond to the Kaddish in the synagogue. He actually jumped off the roof to get there, and that so found favor in one of the people in the community where he was that he had him marry his daughter. But then the young lad said absolutely nothing, seemed not to be learning or studying Torah or anything, and the father-in-law was profoundly disappointed. And they come to his home some of the sages of the circle of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and the father-in-law is complaining and wondering whether she should have his daughter get divorced so she can marry somebody else, be more successful. But the sages who are visiting from the Chevraya, the fellows of the circle of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, say, well, the boy must have something in him if he jumped off the roof in order to get in time to the synagogue to answer the Kaddish. And they bring the boy in, the young lad, and that's when the lad opens his mouth. And this is, our commentators explain, this is Brei de Rav Safra. This is the son of Rav Safra, one of the outstanding sages who had left his son orphaned. And this young son became a very, very great sage. And as he takes his debut on the pages of the Holy Zohar, he starts with the verse from our chapter, in chapter 32, verse 6, So'ir ani leyomim ba'atem yeshishim. I am young when it comes to days, and you are elders. Al kein zochalti vo'iro mechavois dei eschem. That is why I am trembling and fearful to express my opinion before you. And the young lad who's just opening now, as it were, a young man in front of all these elders, who now opens his mouth with an ensuing series of the most beautiful Torah discourses and explanations of passages of scriptures, quoting this verse of Elihu, the young upstart, as it were, who nobody's heard from until now. The young lad there addressing the Chaverim of Rabbi Shimon, he says, this verse, the pillars of the earth have already been aroused to explain it, but this Elihu that is described as being of the family of Ram, they pointed out on this verse that he came from the seed of Abraham, and that's well and good. But he continues, Elihu was a Kohen. And he says, actually, Elihu was from the seed of Ezekiel the prophet. And before I go on, let's not get too confused by all of this. The Jerusalem Talmud is saying in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah that he is Yitzchak, and now we're hearing that he is Ezekiel the prophet. What are we doing here jumping? We've already heard at the beginning of our studies of Job how many different opinions there are among our sages about the actual provenance of the book of Job. But each time we speak about whether this is Isaac or this is Ezekiel, we're talking about prophetic spirits that are to be found and sensed in the words of Elihu. So this young man is pointing out that there are aspects of Ezekiel to be found in the nature of Elihu's prophecies. And how does he darshan this? The young man says, well, it's written here in our verse 2 of chapter 32 of Job, that he is the son of Barachel Habuzi, and it's written over there in Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 3, Yechezkel ben Buzi a-Kohen, Ezekiel the son of Buzi, the priest, in which case Elihu, being a descendant of Buzi, is also a priest, and related apparently to the family of Ezekiel. And if you say that, as one could darshan, that because he's called Buzi, he's from the most despicable of all the families, that is not the case. Because as soon as the verse, after calling him Buzi, says he's from the family of Ram, the family that is exalted, that means he's exalted above all. So why then is he called Buzi with this word that has the connotation of disparagement? Because he would disparage himself and diminish himself in the face of anybody that was greater than him. And that is why he attained this very exalted name of Buzi. And indeed, Ezekiel, who is called the Buzi, is frequently referred to in the book of Ezekiel by God as Adam ben Adam. And Ezekiel, who is called the son of Buzi, of the same family as Elihu bar Rachel, according to this interpretation, Ezekiel attains the name Ve'ato ben Adam, Ezekiel chapter 2, verse 6, you are the son of Adam, and this is the most exalted name, the name of the primordial, the archetypal Adam, and that's why he's called Ram, the exalted above all. And as to what he says, Tzo'ir ani leyomim, I am young for days. You would have thought it should have said, Ani tzo'ir mi yomim, I'm younger than the days that you have attained with your old age. But it doesn't say that. What does it mean here? My leyomim. What is it saying? Leyomim is the words in our verse, Sa'ir ani layomim, I'm young when it comes to days. He was saying, I am young in the sense that I diminish and make myself small in front of days. When I see that a person has attained very many days, for what reason, as Elihu bar Rachel goes on to say in our chapter, Omati diyomim medaberu, I said that days will speak, the superior age of these men will speak, and that's why I'm young, that I made myself small and little in front of the days, whereas you are yeshishim, you are elders. I see that you are elders, and that's why Elihu says, I've been trembling with fear to let you express you without expressing my own opinion. And then the young man says, me too, this young lad who's giving out this very beautiful drasha, he says, me too, I'm in the same situation. I've been waiting and holding my mouth shut until I felt qualified and able to open my mouth and speak. And there are many other deep mysteries in this passage in the Holy Zohar. But to conclude, let us reference Rabbi Nachman of Breslov in his story of the 7 beggars, the last of the very lengthy Sipurei Masiot, the stories and narratives that Rabbi Nachman said in the later years of his life. And in the book of the 7 beggars, in the story of the first beggar, the story of the 7 beggars is made up of 7 beggars who help out a lost boy and girl in the forest when they've got separated from their parents in some mass migration, and the beggars successively come and give them bread and give them blessings, and when finally the young couple find their way to civilization, they themselves become beggars, and all the local beggars decide to marry them one to the other, and at their wedding, these 7 beggars that had come when they were lost in the forest, each one on one of the 7 days of the marriage festivities, comes back and tells a story explaining the blessing he is giving to them. And the blessing of the first of the 7 beggars, who was blind, is that the young couple should have length of days like him. And he says, you see, I am very, very old, but I am so young that I have not yet begun to live at all. And this is the mystery of the story of the beggar that was blind in Rabbi Nachman's story of the 7 beggars, the mystery of how it could be that somebody who is so very young could be actually so very old and wise. And here we have the mystery of the Chokhmah, which Elihu Baruch El is challenging us to open ourselves to and understand. Chokhmah is the stream and the flow of wisdom that is coming prophetically and through Holy Spirit into man's soul. And as Elihu will tell us when we come into chapter 32, it is the Spirit of God within the person that brings forth wisdom, and it may or may not be related to a person's actual age. Because wisdom and age, while they should go together, and hopefully they will go together, it is not always the case. There are old people who have lost their wits, and there are young people who bring a refreshing, completely new perspective on things. And that is what we're being asked to discover in the coming discourses of Elihu. Because as Ramban points out, until now, the 3 companions that have spoken to Job have not given Job an answer. And Job, they have fallen silent, and Job has come to the end of his discourses. So now Elihu comes in and begins to address Job and the companions. And after all of Elihu's discourses at the end of chapter 37, Job does not reply to him, meaning that if he had anything to reply, he would have replied, and therefore that Job has found satisfaction in Elihu's arguments, which are founded upon Chokhmah. And even though Job was the most senior of all of the 4 we've heard until now, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, and Job himself, Job was the most senior, with Eliphaz the second and Bildad the third, Zophar the fourth, because they spoke in order of seniority. Now Elihu says, well, that's all past, because you're going to hear now a constantly refreshed wisdom that, although it is very old and ancient, nevertheless it comes forth from a completely fresh source, the mystery of Rabbi Nachman's beggar that says, I'm very old, and I'm also so young that I have not yet begun to live. So with that, my friends, we conclude our studies of Tanakh for today with that introduction to the coming section of the book of Job. And in just a few minutes, with the help of God, I'll be back with our Mishnah class for today.
Bye. la la mo yo 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 la 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 mo yo oh yo oh yo ay la 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 mo da 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 bevias go ya bevias go ya lechayai oy lo mabu Yo,
Shalom again, my dear friends, back to our studies now, continuing today with our studies in the Holy Mishnah in the tractate Shabbat, chapter 16, in the middle of the Perek, the middle of the chapter, starting in Mishnah 5 today. Shalom, today the 28th day of the month of Iyar of the year 5777, corresponding to the 24th of May of the year 2017. And we'll continue today with our studies in the Mishnah in tractate Shabbat, Masachet Shabbat, in the 16th chapter called Kisvei HaKodesh, which have been speaking about issues of what to do if a fire breaks out on the Shabbat. And we've already learned that mechaber, extinguishing of fire, is one of the 39 kinds of labors that is prohibited on the Shabbat. And as with all of the 39 labors, the labor is prohibited when it's done for a positive purpose, as we learned in the second chapter of the Masechta, where if a person extinguishes the wick of a light in order that the wick should be easily lightable afterwards, that is a positive action. One is extinguishing the wick to accomplish a purpose. The same if one is extinguishing a coal in order that the coal will be easily lighted afterwards. There, the extinguishing serves a positive purpose. Where the extinguishing in itself is not serving the purpose, as here where you're putting out the fire, not because anything positive is accomplished by putting out the fire in itself, but because you want to save it from destroying the rest of the house and the belongings. That is not technically within the boundaries of the melacha as prohibited midoraisa from the Torah. Now, there is dispute between the sages as to whether a melacha she'eno tzricha legufo, a labor that is not intrinsically required for the main body of the labor, whether that is also prohibited midoraisa or midrabanan. Is it a prohibition that is from the Torah, or is it one that results from a gzera, a decree of the sages? Well, now in our coming Mishnah, we're going to enter another issue, which is whether you can do something on the Shabbat that is going to bring about another consequence as a result of your action, where your action is not the actual melacha in itself, but your action will bring about the carrying out of the melacha. The example that is given in our Talmud, in our halachic writings, is called psik resho, cut off its head. Psik resho is an example of a labor which is performed that causes a result that is a violation of the halacha. The example given is of a father who wants to give his little child a bird to play with, and so the bird won't go flying off. The father clips the head of the bird, so the little boy has this bird to play with, where the intention of the father was not actually to slaughter the bird, but the inevitable result of what he did was that the bird died. His intention was to give his child a toy that won't get away. But the result of what he did brings about the death of the bird, and to kill a living creature is one of the forbidden melachot of Shabbat. So the question is, are there circumstances in which you can carry out an action that will result in the performance of a melacha, even though you have not carried out the action? And that's the subject of our present Mishnah, which is going to show that our sages, in the case of a conflagration, permitted doing things that will actually engineer the extinguishing of the fire, as long as you don't do it directly. We are not allowed to pour water onto a raging fire by ourselves, but we can prevent the fire spreading. And that is what our Mishnah now discusses. Rabbi Shimon ben Nanos Omer, Mishnah 5 of chapter 16 of Masachet Shabbos. Rabbi Shimon, the son of Nanos, says, Porsin or shel gedi al gabei shido, tevo umigdol. It will be permitted to stretch over the leather of the skin of a kid goat or lamb, al gabe shido, on top of a shido, that is a kind of cupboard, closet, a tevo, a chest, a migdal would be a taller kind of a closet, tall like a tower, wardrobe or something of the kind. It would be permitted over these wooden furnishings to stretch over the skin of a kid if they are threatened being burned up. She'ochaz bohen esa'ur, where already the fire has taken hold of them. If the fire is raging there, it's permitted to stretch over the leather of the kid goat or lamb. The reason being because the fire will scorch the skin of the kid goat, but the skin won't get fire itself, and that will protect the furniture. And even though you are doing this as a protective measure, which will indirectly bring about the extinguishing, hopefully, of the fire, it is permitted to do this on the Shabbat. The reason being that where a person's property is waived, is in danger, our sages waived certain of their decrees. So normally, to take an action that would result in the coming about of another malacha, normally that is prohibited. But here, where property is at risk, the sages waived their normal decree to permit that action, as we go on to say. V'oisin mechitzo b'chol hakelim. They could make a barrier out of any kind of utensils. Bein meleim, bein rekonim, whether the barrels were full or whether they were empty. Bishvil sheloi tavor adleko, so that the conflagration should not go any further. It would be permitted if the furnishings in the house were on fire, permitted to arrange the barrels there so that if the fire is in danger of spreading, the barrels will burst, hold it back, and therefore it won't spread any further. So that is the opinion of the Tanakama here, that one could make a barrier out of any kind of utensil to stop the fire spreading. Rabbi Yosef dissents. Rabbi Yosef oiser b'chli cheres chadoshim meleim mayim. Rabbi Yosef forbids doing this with earthenware vessels that were new if they were filled with water, lefi she'ein yecholen lekabel es ha'ur, because they cannot accept the fire. V'hein misbakin, they burst. U'machabin es adleko, they extinguish the fire. That is to say that Rabbi Yosef is qualifying the Tanakama, the first opinion, by saying that if it is absolutely certain that the malacha you wish to come about, namely the extinguishing of the fire, will come about in such a case where the vessel just won't, filled with water, won't be able to withstand the fire, and it's definitely going to burst, there the desired consequence is so definitely going to happen. According to the Tanakama, it's an even chance whether the vessels will or will not burst. The halacha is actually like the Tanakama. It is not like Rabbi Yosef. One could take such preventive measures to even where the barrel is going to burst and the water is going to put out the fire. Well, now we come to another very interesting section of our chapter, dealing with a different issue, which is a live issue for all that live and celebrate the Shabbat of Israel among non-Jewish people and non-Israelite people. And the question is, given that the Torah forbids Israel to carry out any malacha on the Shabbat, is it permitted to tell a non-Israelite to perform a malacha that is going to be of benefit to the Israelite? Is it permitted to benefit from a malacha that was performed by a non-Israelite, and under what circumstances? And this discussion begins in the context of putting out the fire, and it's going to carry on to cover other aspects of this law. If there was a pagan, a worshipper of the stars, of the idols, the planets that came to extinguish the fire, we cannot say to him, Kabe, yes, put it out, or don't put it out. Because his shaviso, his celebration of the Shabbat, is not an obligation upon them, that is to say, upon the Israelites who are watching helplessly as this conflagration is going on, and along comes the Nachri, the non-Israelite, and he sees the fire and very understandably wants to put it out, and the Israelite is not commanded to tell him, don't do that, because the Israelite has no responsibility for the non-Israelite yes or no to keep the Shabbat. It is not our responsibility. And if he chooses to do something that is for an Israelite forbidden on the Shabbat, then the Israelite is not required to tell him not to do it, nor is the Israelite allowed to tell the non-Israelite to perform a malacha on the Shabbat. It is a prohibition called a Shavut, one of the aspects of the Shabbat rest, that an Israelite is not permitted to give instructions to the non-Israelite, whether before the Shabbat or on the Shabbat, to perform a melacha for the benefit of the Israelite. And that is one of the boundaries of the Shabbat, so that the Shabbat should not be regarded light-heartedly by the non-Israelites or by the Israelites who say, oh, what a great opportunity to have all of our work done for us when we are forbidden to do it. So in the case of the Nachri, the non-Israelite, we are forbidden to tell him to do the labor, and we are not obliged to tell him not to do it, as we learn out from our Mishnah here. And omrim lo kabe va'al tchabe. We don't say to him either yes, put it out, or do not put it out. Mipnei she'ein shvisosoi alehen. His shaviso, his Sabbath rest, is not a responsibility upon them. That is to say, the Israelites. Avol koton shebol chabois. However, if a child comes to put the fire out, ein shomim loi, we do not listen to him, we do not allow him to do that. If an Israelite child comes to put out the fire, knowing that while for the adult it is a Torah prohibition to perform the labor, the child himself is not under the obligation of the labors until the age of 13 in the case of a boy, or 12 in the case of a girl. Nevertheless, we have to tell him not to do it, because we are enjoined to train this child to observe the Shabbat. And for the Israelite adult to put out the fire is a transgression of the prohibition of the laborers, and even the katan, the child, has to be trained in the performance of the commandments. Well, now, having dealt with various ways of putting out the fire, we're going to branch out to some related ways of using some item to protect against some danger, related cases. And this is the subject of the 7th Mishnah, Mishnah Zayin. Koifen ke'oro al gabi hanir bishvil sheloi te'echoz bakoiro. One will be allowed to overturn a dish or a bowl on top of a lighted lamp that was endangering the wooden beam that it is sitting on, bishvil sheloi te'echoz bakoiro, so that it should not catch the wood, the beam, so that the beam should not catch fire. Here again, we are dealing with a preventive measure where there is a danger of fire. Before, we were talking about a fire that is already raging. Here we're talking about a fire that is in the lamp, but we are fearful that the lamp will crack and the oil will flow out, and the chest, the wooden chest, will catch fire. So it's permitted to take this ki'ara, which and put it over the lamp, even knowing that when the lamp exhausts the oxygen under it, the lamp will automatically go out. But since at the time when we put it over the lamp is not directly caused to go out, it takes time, and not through the simple act of placing it over it. It takes somewhat later. For that reason, for this protective purpose, it will be permitted to take the vessel and use it for that purpose. And then branching off into some related subjects, ve'altsoyo shel koton, you could take a ki'ara, a bowl, and put it over literal words of the meaning of the words of the Mishnah here is the excrement of a katan, of a child, ve'al akrov shelo tishach, and over a scorpion, so it should not bite. What the Mishnah here is saying is as follows, according to the discussion in the Talmud. Intrinsically, if you were in your house and some child dirties the house, it's permitted to remove it because it is offensive to us in our house to have such a thing. And we should be coming later on to the various rules of vessels one may remove. One of them is called a grof shel roi, that is a pan of excrement, which is permitted to move on the Shabbat. And that is not what our Mishnah here is talking about, because our Mishnah says we may overturn the bowl over the excrement. Here, according to our commentators, this is speaking about a yard where there are hens running about, and the hens have their droppings, and the cotton, the child in question, we are afraid will get dirtied if he starts playing around with all of this mess there. So for that reason, it's permitted to take the preventive measure of taking the bowl and putting it over the excrement on the Shabbat, even though you may be subsequently unable to use the bowl on the Shabbat, and it might be deemed that you have caused it to become unusable. Nevertheless, in order to prevent this danger to the child, it's permitted to do this preventively. And likewise, the question of the scorpion. Here we are back to the issue of tzad, of trapping of living creatures. And here our Mishnah says that it's permitted to preventively put a jar over a scorpion that is in to prevent its biting anyone, and even though you're not going to be able to move that vessel, and you are actually trapping the scorpion. But now there is a rejoinder to this part of the Mishnah. Omer Rabbi Yehuda, the continuation of the 7th Mishnah. Omer Rabbi Yehuda says, Maaseh bo lifnei Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai ba'arav. There was an event, a happening that came, a question that was brought before Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai ba'arav, when he was a place called Arav, where that means that he was at some point in Arabia, which is very possible in the period of the beginnings of the waves of exiles from the land of Israel at the time of the destruction of the Second Temple. Wherever he was, there was the question brought to him about somebody putting a vessel over a scorpion, and Rabban Yochanan Zakkai answered the question, could they do that on Shabbat? Somebody had actually put a vessel over a scorpion. V'omar choshasheni loy mechatos. Choshasheni, I have a chashash, I have a suspicion, that is to say, in my mind there is a doubt, a possibility, mechatos, that for doing that, for trapping a scorpion in that way on the Shabbat, he would have to offer a sin offering in atonement. In other words, Rabban Yochanan Zakkai appears to be saying that there are circumstances in which one would not be allowed to put the vessel over the scorpion to stop it being a danger. And the Rav Ovadia Mibartanura, the commentator on Mishnah, gives us the actual halachic conclusion of this discussion. Le'inyan psak halacha, when it comes to the decision of the actual halacha, and we must always remember we cannot rule directly out of the Mishnah, but the Bartanura summarizes the halacha. Oisen bari ho'eres shenoishchin umisosin umamisin vadai, those poisonous creatures that bite and will definitely kill. Kegoin anochoshim, asrofim, v'chelev shoite. Like, for example, serpents and vipers, poisonous snakes. V'chelev shoite, a mad dog, a rabid dog. Muter le'orgon miyod k'shayir oison. It is permitted to kill them immediately if one sees them. Even if they are not actually pursuing the person, just on sight one may kill them to prevent a danger which is certain should they be aroused. Now those species that do not definitely bite and kill, there are times when they may kill, there are times when they won't kill. If they are running after the person, it would be permitted to kill that creature. If they're not actually running after the person, he could turn over on them some vessel. As in our example of putting the bowl over the scorpion, depending on what kind of scorpion it is. Some scorpions do bite, some poisonously, some don't. If the person tread on them and killed them as he's innocently walking on his way, then the Bartner concludes, mutter, that will be permitted if one walked in a place where these creatures were and just trod on them. That is permitted. To trap a snake because one wants to play with a snake, that is prohibited on the Shabbat. With that, we come to the 8th Mishnah. Again, a non-Israelite, a pagan that lit a lamp on the Shabbat. The Israelite is allowed to use the light, to have benefit of the light. But if it was for the sake of the Israelite that the non-Israelite lit the light, also the Israelite is not allowed to have benefit from that light. It is not permitted for an Israelite to have benefit from a labor performed on the Shabbat by the non-Israelite for the sake of that Israelite. That is one of the prohibitions of the Shabbat. So if the non-Israelite lights a lamp for himself, as the Talmud says, nir le'echod, nir le'meo, a lamp for one person is a lamp for 100. One and the same lamp will light up for one or many people. And so since the non-Israelite is lighting it for himself, it is permitted for the Israelite to have benefit of what has already been brought about by the non-Israelite. But if the non-Israelite did it for his sake, and that would apply, for example, to an employed attendant in the house. One cannot have the attendant turn on and off the lights on the Shabbat for the sake of the Israelite family. Continuing with other examples of this halacha. If the non-Israelite filled up water from a well to water his animal, and the well is Reshut Yachid, the well being deep and deeper than 10 tefachim and more than 4 by 4 handbreadths, is a Reshut Yachid, and when the non-Israelite draws the water from the well and takes it out into the street, into the drinking trough, he's performed the malacha of hotza'ah, carrying out from private domain to public domain on the Shabbat. So where the non-Israelite does this for his own animal, if there's water left, the Israelite is allowed to water his animal in the water that the non-Israelite has drawn on the Shabbat. If the non-Israelite filled with water to give water to his animal, the Israelite after him may give water to the Israelite's animal. However, if the non-Israelite was drawing the water knowing it's for the Israelite now, after, for example, if his own animal ceased drinking and now he starts drawing for the Israelite, the Israelite is not allowed to benefit from a malacha, from a labor performed by him on the Shabbat by a non-Israelite. And now the concluding section of our Mishnah, giving another example of circumstances in which one may take advantage from an act of labor performed by the non-Israelite on the Shabbat. Also, if the non-Israelite who has been on a voyage with Israelites lets down a gangway to get off the boat onto the land, if the non-Israelite does this for himself and he is now doing an act of construction on the Shabbat, Yored Aharov Yisrael, the Israelite is permitted to come down on that gangway put by the non-Israelite on the Shabbat. Ve'eme b'shvil Yisrael, but if the non-Israelite put it there for the Israelite only, Asur, the Israelite is not allowed to take benefit of that on the Shabbat. And our Mishnah concludes, Maaseh b'Rabban Gamliel u'Zakenim. There was an episode with Rabban Gamliel, the head of the Sanhedrin at the time, Uzakenim, the other senior elders of Israel who had been on a voyage, Shehayu Boin Basfino, they were coming to the port in a boat. Also Ovid Kochovim Kevesh, the non-Israelite made a gangway, a walk plank to get down off the boat. Le'reid boy, and the non-Israelite did it for himself to go down. V'yordu boy Rabban Gamliel uzkenim. They went down on that same gangplank on the Shabbat, Rabban Gamliel and the elders. Now the presumption here is that the boat was within the 2,000 cubit limit from the dry land before the entry of the Shabbat, so that therefore the elders were actually within their Shabbat boundaries and get off the boat on the Shabbat. Here again, another example of where the non-Israelite performs a labor for himself. The Israelite is allowed to benefit from that labor on the Shabbat. So with that, my friends, we conclude our studies for today, and with the help of God, I will be back here tomorrow at the same time, 1600 hours Israel time on Thursday, to continue our studies in Sefer Iyov, Book of Job, and in the Mishnah Shabbat. So today, may we all have a blessed Yom Yerushalayim in the merit of Shmuel Hanavi, Samuel the prophet. As we prepare we're now on the first day of the last week of the Omer count today on this day where we are on Chesed of Malchut, steadily advancing through to the climax of the Omer count. So with that, my dear friends, I wish you from Yerushalayim shalom and blessings, and looking forward to our next session tomorrow. Shalom.